and welcome to Arbitral Insights, a podcast series brought to you by our international arbitration practice lawyers here at Reed Smith. I'm Peter Roscher, Global Head of Reed Smith's International Arbitration Practice. I hope you enjoy the industry commentary, insights and anecdotes we share with you in the course of this series, wherever in the world you are. If you have any questions about any of the topics discussed, please do contact our speakers.
Welcome to our Women in Arbitration podcast mini-series, a platform for women's voices across the global international arbitration community. I'm Lucy Winnington Ingram, an international arbitration lawyer based in Reed Smith's London office. In these episodes, we will hear from leading women in the international arbitration space and discuss industry news, trends, developments, and matters of interest. And with that, let's get started.
Hello, and welcome back to Arbitral Insights and the latest in our Women in Arbitration mini-series. My name is Susie Savage. I'm an international arbitration lawyer and partner principally based in Reed Smith's London office, but also working out of the Reed Smith Astana office. Today, I'm really thrilled to be joined by barrister Dr. Natalia Perova of Lamb Chambers here in London. Natalia, who is a Russian-speaking English barrister who's been working with Reed Smith and myself on behalf of Kazakh clients for a number of years, is head of the International Dispute Resolution Group at Lamb Chambers and also acts as an international arbitrator and arbitration advocate. Thank you so much, Natalia, for kindly giving up your time to take part in this dialogue with Reed Smith about women in international arbitration. Promoting and having an open dialogue on diversity, equity and inclusion is part of Reed Smith's ethos every day of the year, and one about which Natalia and I are passionate. It's lovely to be speaking with you again. The last time we met, Natalia, was in a delightful restaurant in Astana, but I was carrying a heavy cold and we were all still very wary of COVID. To get things rolling, please would you share with us a little bit about your professional background from being an intern in the United Nations, university lecturer in law, and now a barrister and an arbitrator based in London, but working all over the world for global clients. And I note your many and varied language skills. Why did you want to go into the law?
Well, interestingly, a career in law hasn't been my first choice. So when I was about 10 years old, I've become very passionate about journalism and pursued my passion all the way until the end of my first university degree. It was during that time when I was introduced to some law subjects, and in particular, our tutor was asking very interesting questions and very challenging, I must say. So I realized that I really have this fascination with intellectual challenge and these interesting questions. So there were a few years after that when I was living in different countries, doing internships in international organizations, studying for various university degrees, a fascination about public international law, the United Nations, and then there was a career in academia. And after all this and 6 university degrees and 2 PhDs, I know I'm a bit overqualified. I finally got an opportunity to practice law at the bar.
I'm terribly impressed with 6 university degrees. Wow. So, mentoring and its importance is a big topic in this area. So would you share with us who mentored and influenced you on this path?
Well, I think that was a collective effort of all my tutors, masters and PhD supervisors, and also during my internship at the ICTY tribunal, Judge Morrison suggested that I should qualify as a barrister because I was going to do a PhD, and he said, you must join the bar. So he organized first marshalling experience with a judge for me. So those who don't know what is marshalling is like sitting on the same bench with a judge in a local court. And I really enjoyed it and followed that experience with a lot of other marshalling opportunities that I organized for myself. So during this marshalling, I actually realized that I really want to take part in court proceedings and decided to become a barrister. Actually, I also wanted to become a judge, but it doesn't involve that much flexibility in terms of work commitments. So I guess being an arbitrator actually gets you best of the both worlds.
So I'm guessing then that that's why you went down the arbitration path in particular.
Well, yes. So I like the flexibility aspect of it and also its international nature. Having always enjoyed working with people coming from different parts of the world, being part of this diverse and international environment at the United Nations, I was always trying to combine my career at the bar and international aspects of my work. So my current practice is actually very international in nature, and obviously a lot of international matters are now resolved by international arbitral tribunals.
They are indeed. So before we started today, you mentioned to me that you've just come back from arbitrating in the VIS International Arbitration Moot in Vienna and how inspiring it was. So would you tell me about what went on there and what your thoughts are on the future of international arbitration?
Oh, this is really an extraordinary event, which happens every year for the last 30 years. It brings together teams of students from universities around the world who compete against each other in a moot. So for those who don't know what moot is, it's like a mock arbitration proceeding, which concerns a problem question which the students have to deal with. And these moots are judged by moot arbitrators who are practicing lawyers, arbitrators, or university lecturers or professors. I was really amazed by the scale of this event. 30 years ago, when it started, it was about 11 teams. Now, this year, 387 teams from so many countries around the world, and about 1,000 arbitrators and coaches were present in Vienna. So we can see how popularity of international arbitration around the world is really growing so fast. And I think this is the future of international dispute resolution. I realize that there are so many lawyers around the world who are also fascinated, like I am, with international arbitration. I really like the idea that organizers made sure that there were mixed tribunals. So arbitrators would be coming from common law and civil law jurisdictions. And we all learn from each other in terms of the style and approaches. And really, students benefit from it as well. It was good to demonstrate to the new generation of future lawyers the importance of diversity, gender diversity, social, cultural, age diversity. Once they qualify, they will bring with them and maintain throughout their careers the values of equality and diversity. And I think the trend is towards recognition of truly global international nature of arbitration, its flexibility and diversity, as arbitrators, advocates, and parties are coming from different countries and different backgrounds. That's really valuable, I think, for the future.
Okay, then, so what, in your view, are the key positives that come from having socially, culturally, age, gender diverse arbitral tribunals?
I think diversity in arbitration provides a better understanding of parties' needs, moves towards elimination of preconceptions and resolution of disputes in a fair and most effective way. I think the realization is actually that we're all coming from different places and different backgrounds, but what we need to understand is we're part of the same process and we share similar objectives, and the differences between us will only be our strengths.
Wonderful. I'm proud to say that Reed Smith is a signatory to and active proponent of both the Equal Representation in Arbitration Pledge and Equal Representation in Expert Witnesses Pledge. The issue of gender disparity remains high on the agenda in all walks of life, and rightly so, actually. There are many extraordinary, fantastically hardworking women leaders in arbitration, such as Meg Kinnear, elected to a third term as the Secretary-General of ICSID, and the redoubtable Claudia Solomon, the first woman president of the ICC Court, and this year overseeing the ICC's centenary. And they lead the way and inspire women in arbitration. So, Natalia, you inspire me. So can you share with us your thoughts generally on women in arbitration?
Oh, Susie, you're also a real inspiration for me as well. So I think it's very important that the world is moving toward better inclusion of women in arbitration. I think we can add different perspective and value to the tribunal's dynamic, the way the tribunals conduct their matters and deliberate. as long as everyone is receptive to different perspectives, respects each other's views, and works towards a common objective, this helps a lot. In my experience, given difficulties that exist or existed for women to get to higher positions and get good appointments, they tend to work even harder to get there. And this hard work and perseverance brings a lot of success to organizations or tribunals where they work.
So, Natalia, do you really think things have improved for women in arbitration over the last sort of 5 to 10 years?
I actually think they did, and one of the examples of this is where I'm currently sitting in an arbitration in a different jurisdiction, and we have a 3-member tribunal, and 2 of us are women. One of us is presiding arbitrator, and the dynamic is amazing. Among all of us, it's really good that there is this diversity element here, but also I can see that it is becoming actually a norm rather than an exception to have this tribunal.
I think that's really encouraging.
Yeah, agree. And that's why I see the world moving towards this kind of direction. So I do know that in some jurisdictions there are more difficulties than in other jurisdictions, which are more open-minded. And some jurisdictions reached a lot of progress on this. But in others, you have sometimes some archaic attitudes towards women's roles generally. And unfortunately, they remain and quite difficult to break through. I commend institutions who work really hard on this, but there's still some way to go. And this way to go is probably for the parties and clients who are the ones that would need to learn on this trend and lead this trend.
So how do you see the practice of arbitration then changing in the next 10 years?
I think the current trend is towards diversity and values it brings, and globalization helps in this direction a lot. I do believe that this international arbitration moot in particular represents this trend. If every year we'll have about 4,000 people more participating in it from all around the world, all these participants will bring what they really learn there, their ideas and values to their work in arbitration. So there will be a trend to diversity, flexibility, effectiveness, finding a common ground and adopting more of a cooperative approach, focusing on a resolution of a dispute, not just on escalation. And the parties, lawyers and arbitrators who will realize that earlier on will be the real winners of this process, I think.
That's great. It just remains for me now to thank Natalia for joining me in this podcast and to thank you all very much for listening. We hope you'll tune in to the next edition of our Arbitral Insights podcast series, and especially the next podcast in our Women in Arbitration mini-series. To find out more about Reed Smith's international arbitration capabilities in London, Paris, Astana, the US and elsewhere, do please visit reedsmith.com.
Arbitral Insights is a Reed Smith production. Our producer is Ali McCardle. For more information about Reed Smith's global international arbitration practice, email arbitralinsights@reedsmith.com. To learn about the Reed Smith Arbitration Pricing Calculator, a first-of-its-kind mobile app that forecasts the costs of arbitration around the world, search Arbitration Pricing Calculator on reedsmith.com or download for free through the Apple and Google Play app stores. You can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google Play, Stitcher, reedsmith.com, and our social media accounts at Reedsmith LLP on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. This podcast is provided for educational purposes. It does not constitute legal advice and is not intended to establish an attorney-client relationship, nor is it intended to suggest or establish standards of care applicable to particular lawyers in any given situation. Prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome. Any views, opinions, or comments made by any external guest speaker are not to be attributed to Reed Smith LLP or its individual lawyers. All rights reserved.